Jury selection for actor Jussie Smollett's trial starts today. The former Empire star is accused of lying to authorities for an attack he claims was fueled by racism and homophobia. Now, if convicted, Smollett faces up to 3 years in prison. Now, this is the latest twist in this case. It comes after 16 felony counts of disorderly conduct were unexpectedly dropped last year. All right, joining us more to give us more legal insight, we got former prosecutor Marie Pereira. We also got criminal defense attorney and private investigator Karen Felecia Nance. Always a pleasure. So Karen, all right, so let's get right to it. What is he being charged with? Because, I mean, those disorderly charges were dropped last year. So what charges is he facing now?
Well, he was facing initially the 16 counts, which were, as you indicated, were dismissed. And now we have 6 counts that are based on basically lying to the law enforcement officers. So it's based on his racial and homophobic attacks by these 2 individuals that he claimed that he had nothing to do with setting them up. They just did this on their own, even though there was the affiliation with the movie set of Empire. So it's the 6 counts that are remaining, and he can get up between 1 to 3 years in prison. He's on all 6 counts.
I mean, if this is all lies, I mean, this is a lot. I mean, 3 years in jail, in prison, just for a little bit of attention. I mean, I don't know. Nonetheless, Marie, Smollett continues to maintain his innocence. But at this point, it sounds like it's hearsay, right? It's his word against the word of these brothers. How does he prove? What does the state need to prove otherwise, that he is innocent or he isn't?
Well, the state needs to prove that he behaved in a manner that caused alarm, annoyance, and he broke the law. That's what they need to prove. Now, they're going to look at the credibility of all the parties involved, including the 2 brothers who claims he paid them to beat him up and put a noose around his neck and pour some unknown liquid on him. Now, he's saying, well, no, I had no parts in this. I didn't do it. I am a victim. It's the credibility that's going to come into play here. And although the state doesn't have to prove motive, they are going to have to come up with some idea on why would he lie about something like that. That's going to be very difficult because, I mean, clearly this motivated everyone to be in an uproar. There was pain, anger, racism, homophobia claims, and people rallied behind him.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be a question of he say and they said, basically.
Yeah, I mean, folks did rally behind him, and we sympathize with him. I mean, talking about a Hollywood star walking to get the train or wherever he was going, attacked by 2 men, doused with some unknown substance. I mean, of course it was alarming, especially the heightened environment we were in. All right, Karen, the city of Chicago spent over $130,000 investigating these claims, not to mention allocating resources and officers to investigate. Do you think the prosecutors are just trying to make an example out of Smollett for wasting time and resources?
I absolutely think so. In addition, the prosecutor on the state prosecutor Kim Fox is African American, and then we have the other 2 men involved are African American. So I think, unfortunately, it's an opportunity to exploit all the parties involved. The men that are charged with attacking him initially were actually charged. Now that they have a charge against them that is not as serious as a charge against Smollett. So I think, unfortunately, we as Black people in this scenario are caught between the initial prosecutor position, because she was attacked by the police superintendent as well as the mayor, and then we have the 2 men on the other side who it's basically a credibility issue, right? Who do you believe? But it's not just a straight who do you believe. There are racial intonations with regard to all of those parties involved. So it's very unfortunate. I believe that it should be just dealt with in terms of who factually do you believe based on the evidence that's presented. We have over 500 pieces of paper regarding the reports. There was a woman who actually said that night she saw a man to be white in a jacket that had some type of rope coming out of his jacket. She Lord. So even though we don't have the the state prosecutor handling it. We have a special prosecutor. Hopefully that information will come to light as well.
All right, so what charges are these two men facing? Karen, Marie, either of you ladies can take this question.
Karen?
So my understanding is Jussie's the one who's facing the charges of misrepresenting himself to the police department. So now we have just a minor offense. I believe that they're not looking at more than misdemeanor charges, which don't exceed the possibility of. So why would that be the case when they're the ones, whether he orchestrated it or not, that caused some physical injury to him? Why not, at the very least, they be charged with the same offense?
Yeah, so do you think...
So to me, there's a miscarriage there.
So do you think that these guys will possibly cop a plea? I mean, why even take it to trial, right?
Right. Initially...
I think
Go ahead, Marie.
I think they're cooperating, and they're going to be witnesses against Mr. Smollett. So I think with that, they're not really charging them with anything, because they're claiming that whatever happened, Mr. Smollett asked them to beat him up. He invited them to assault him.
But they gotta prove that too. All right, so I want to bring your attention to another incident where someone claimed a false report. During the Olympics in Brazil, Ryan Lochley also made a false report to Brazilian authorities claiming he was attacked. Some folks say he barely faced any criticism or backlash, not the same way that Smollett has. What are your thoughts on that, Marie?
I think it's a different situation, because I'm not sure of what his claims were for the reason of the attack, but with the Smollett situation,
Well, they got drunk. He and some friends allegedly got wasted and trashed some stuff, and they claimed allegedly that they were attacked.
I think Mr. Smollett's claim was taken a little more seriously because of the indications that it was because he had been speaking out negatively against Trump and the whole MAGA movement, and that because he was a gay man and because he was Black. So you had all of these things happening: racism, homophobia, the anguish of criminalizing Black men and behavior of homosexuals. All of that kind of made it an international situation. And I think that's why the other young man, the Olympian, was able to sneak out of it, and less media was focused on it.
Gotcha. Karen, what's your stance on that?
I would agree in part with Marie and disagree in the sense that we're talking about an international forum by itself, just the Olympics in and of itself. We have the whole world deliberately focused on that issue and that arena, and then to have this a representative of the United States do this, I think if at the very least put shame to the United States as a whole, which is different than the situation with Jussie Smollett, because we have this individual, and the crime initially is basically a misdemeanor crime. The fact that the law enforcement authorities spent $130,000, I think it says more about their I would say their desire to not necessarily get to the bottom of it, but to exploit the situation. And so that to me is the difference between the two, is that we're talking about a situation, when we look at the crime that's actually being charged, it's minimal, but the amount of resources that were expended, the taxpayer dollars, was astronomical.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about a high profile, again, Hollywood star claiming to be attacked in one of the major cities. So how long do you think this trial will last for? I mean, we're talking weeks or like quick, right? Or like fast turnaround, done?
I think it's going to be a fast turnaround, done. I think jury selection is going to be quick because the judge in this case is taking over the questioning himself. I think they're not allowing media to live stream it, and they're going to make it very quick, because it's just a matter of, did he ask them to beat him up, or did they beat him up on their own? It's that simple. It's a matter of credibility, the veracity of both the witnesses. And by the way, with regards to the money that was spent on investigating this case, they tried to sue him to get the money back, and he countersued them and said that they caused him some type of emotional distress and public humiliation and embarrassment. So that case is still going on too on the civil level.
Got it, got it. Karen, any updates on that?
I agree with everything that Marie said. And with regard to the updates, I think that the injustice is, do you have a member of the law enforcement who made a statement back in 2019 that he basically concluded without all, yes, Jussie Smollett made this up to increase or to make himself look better so that he could get a raise with the basically raised issues that weren't raised before and came to a conclusion without having all the evidence. And I think as the head of the superintendent of law enforcement there in Chicago, the city, that was crazy, actually.
Yeah.
And so then you're talking about court of public justice or public opinion. He actually created and put that out there in the media, and that was inappropriate.
Yeah, there were some claims that he was trying to increase his star level, his star power, and get a little more money, allegedly. All right, so what's next, ladies? We got about a minute left. Karen, we'll have you give us a 30-second debrief, and then Marie will have you wrap us up.
I believe, as Marie indicated, maybe a 3 to 4 day trial at most after we get the jury selected. And then it's just an issue of the two brothers testifying and Jussie's testifying. Obviously, as the defendant in the case, he doesn't have to testify. But in order to prevail, I believe, and get his point across and get his position, he's going to have to refute the story of the brothers. And on the other hand, the brothers are going to have to testify. So it's going to come down to credibility and who the jury believes is telling the truth in this case.
All right, Marie, final word.
I'm not sure if they did hearings on this case, but he does have an old case from LA back in 2007 where he was stopped for a DWI and used his brother's name when they gave him the disappearance ticket. And for that, he was sentenced, according to the reports that I read, to 2 years probation. So if he takes the stand, I'm curious on whether or not they're going to bring that up. And if they bring it up, it might make him look bad.
Yeah.
You did that, you signed your brother's name, and who knows, maybe you lying again this time.
So Marie, wait, you said, he was stopped for what?
A DWI, driving while intoxicated in LA.
And used his brother's name?
That's the report that I read when I did my research this morning. He used his brother's name and he ended up copping a plea, and they gave him 2 years probation. So if he takes the stand, any witness that takes the stand, you put your credibility at issue, and it could pop up your veracity. And if it does, if they didn't do hearings to suppress that, then it could become problematic for him as far as his credibility, because I was not picking a side, but when I read it, I was like, oh, I see you.
Ooh, you said it. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall during that holiday dinner.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, always a pleasure. Thank you for that legal insight. Of course, we'll be checking back in with you as that trial gets started.